Okay, abusa I have former Chief Justice Sophia Akuffo de ne ho akwakoto asɛm a ɔde ne ho akwakoto no enye asɛm ketewa kora na ne nyinaa fa removal process of suspended Chief Justice Tokono sisi ano onye suspended bio ya sake no every ne officer abusa after say President Mahama eba be declare ne removal no a bibia ye confirmed no maame no Sophia Akuffo eba abonten bekeka nsem bi say President Mahama every king ye democracy no and maame no so kan Council of State ho a oye under oath maame no nkeni kwan sɛ ɔba abɔnten bɛdi di saa nkɔmmɔ bi a ɛkyɛ sɛ ɛnsɛm fata na that means sɛ maame no ɔyɛ obi a ɔne tokonu ɛna aka bom na ɔmo yɛ adwuma ɛde ma MPP a ɔmo fight President Mahama nti obi a ɔyɛ under oath deɛ adɛn na ɛyɛ sɛ ɔba abɔnten ɛbɛkeka saa nsɛm ɛna beside ɔsan so ɛka Council of State ho a abusua sisi ano Council of State Leaders order say saa maami or de ne dibre eto or resign and just a President Mahama so order say just a maami no yes sake no the free Council of State ma abusua enye asam keso akra mama yanko na yanko nkotie ensem bia ye lawyer panyin bi de etudwa efa maami ne nkoma abusua or de betudwa on subscribe ya subscribe like na share ma afofron so ensa into me enka bi aha Ghana Politics Avenue so
I hope you're well.
Thank God.
Well, first let's start with your own views on the conclusions the committee arrived at. The committee concluded that there was a case made out and also recommended that the Chief Justice be removed from office. Subsequently, that has been done. What do you think about that conclusion?
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, and a very good morning to your cherished listeners. I think it must be established that the committee was established pursuant to the provisions of the 1992 Constitution, specifically under Article 146. And so there's no reason to question anything about the committee itself in the first place. Now, what I think must be a point of interest is whether the committee performed its functions in accordance with the provisions of the specific provision of the article. And in the eyes of the ordinary Ghanaian, the right-thinking members of society, there is no denying the fact that the committee demonstrated a high degree of professionalism, a high regard for human value and human integrity in the exercise or performance of its functions. Because whatever processes or procedures were required to be complied with, same were complied with. And that is the fundamental point. Now, we must recognize that the committee doesn't have its own discretion to perform outside the specific provision of the Constitution. And that's exactly what they did. If they had, I have no doubt that we would have brought those concerns out. There may have been one or two concerns raised, but the legitimacy of those concerns should be what we should also be focusing on. And whether those concerns were grounded in law, because whatever it is that you are raising as a matter for which you think something that has happened hasn't been fairly done must be grounded in law. And in all the proceedings as we have followed, there was nothing like that. And so I want to use the opportunity to commend the committee first and foremost for doing a very diligent job, and also state that naturally whatever conclusions may have come out of the committee's work, as we have now, those conclusions or outcomes were largely informed by the degree of professionalism that they demonstrated in the performance of their functions. And so whatever we have today is a natural outcome of the diligence of the committee members. And I want to commend them so much for that. Now, in respect of my view on the conclusions, I would have nothing to have added if I were even a committee member to the outcome that we have today, or to the recommendations properly so called. And all the committee can do is to simply recommend, nothing more, nothing less. And once that is done, they are obliged to submit same or present same to the president. And the president is also bound to work in accordance with the outcome or recommendations of the committee. And the recommendation conclusively and most importantly has been that the former Chief Justice ought to have been removed from office. And that's exactly what the president has done. I mean, he could not have done anything outside that, because from the committee's work and the petition or petitions that were presented to the president, they bordered on matters of misconduct or stated misbehavior. And those are the fundamental grounds upon which a Chief Justice, in some other sense to the Justice of the Superior Court of Judicature, can be removed from office. And so that is where we are. And once again, I want to commend the committee and to commend the Police Excellency, the President, for acting, giving so much regard, respect to the Constitution. And that is what I think we must all try to appreciate and embrace, even as actors within the political and the judiciary as an arm of government. It's very important that we recognize how it operates and the results that might come out of its operations. What will inform the results or the outcome is something that we must also pay attention to and do proper analysis of whether or not those decisions or reasoning or thinking that informs the outcome or recommendations are grounded in law. And I have no doubt that a fantastic job has been done. The committee members ought to be greatly commended, and His Excellency the President himself must be applauded for ensuring that there's that level of sanity being restored in the judiciary, because we all saw some of the contents of the various petitions that were submitted to the President. And I think that we must all take it as an individual and collective responsibility to clear or cleanse the judiciary of any act that will attempt to undermine the confidence of the ordinary people in the judiciary. Remember, the judiciary, in some instances, has become the last hope. And while there's always the history and the principle that the ordinarily will remain the last hope in every governance architecture, especially when the executive and the legislature have failed, it becomes the last resort. Nothing should be done to introduce any iota of lack of confidence, lack of trust in that institution or in that arm of government. Once that is done, we are losing it as a nation and we are losing it as a democracy. And therefore, we must all show interest and demonstrate commitment to ensuring that the sanity of the judiciary is never compromised on any occasion, regardless of the political nature that we have on a given day. And so that's basically what I can say about that for now.
And it is in light of what you said about the judiciary and the need to protect it that the former Chief Justice is of the opinion that as for her, as far as is concerned, the allegations based on which the recommendation was made that the Chief Justice should be removed are not weighty enough, that it was an unnecessary process that we've been taking through. What do you think of that stand that she's taking?
Okay. You see, in a proper democracy as we aspire to have, the former Chief Justice's comment undermines the entire work of not only the committee, but the very institution she is a member of, which is the Council of State. There's something we call collective responsibility. Even though you may have dissented in the determination of the prima facie case, your dissent must be registered there. It must be there on record that you dissented, that there was no prima facie case established. That you don't become a spokesperson for the person who is at the center of affairs. You can do so when you choose to be an individual and not a member of the Council of State. Do you understand the point I'm making? And so long as you remember, as a member of the Council of State, you are not permitted to be passing judgments on the outcomes that are, or on works that were driven out of your own advice. Because if you hadn't made that prima facie determination, it will not have proceeded to this stage. And so you cannot be a part of a committee that has given a clear indication that a prima facie case has been established, for which reason a committee ought to be constituted by the president to look into the merits of the matter. And when the conclusions have been made by the committee, tasked with the onerous responsibility of interrogating the issues raised in the petition, and then having arrived at a conclusion, which conclusion the president has constitutionally implemented, then you now come to speak at the other end to be a PR or a spokesperson for the person at the center of all these matters. When you do this, the rumors that were being made in public that you were also engaged in giving contracts or in acting in a manner that undermine the confidence of the judiciary is true. That's the impression you are giving to the general public. You are also giving an impression as though you are taking it as a feminine game, which is not good for our democracy. The question should also be that will you have been making the same comments if it were a male judge who was at the center of affairs? Will it also be said that if it were probably somebody who is largely aligned to the NDC as a chief justice was at the center of affairs, will you have been making these comments? Because you are also known to be a notorious NPP person. I mean, so all these are there. Now, let's not make it look like we are now shifting it from the judiciary, where the confidence and trust of the ordinary people has greatly waned, to the Council of State. That is the same game the former CJ is playing at the Council of State. Because if you engage in acts that also undermine confidence in that institution, and you were shouldered, you had your way, you exited, another person comes and repeated essentially the same things you were doing, and petition was brought, and which petition was properly interrogated in line with the dictates of the Constitution, and conclusions have been made, findings have been made, recommendations have been made, and that has been implemented. Because you probably survived yours simply because you were shouldered, it doesn't give you a license to think that someone else should have been shouldered. She is the same person who also formed a part of the chain of those who created a biased impression about the judiciary. And so I expected her to have been the last person to be talking about this matter, because you have your own issues. If people should go down to dig out your own conduct, it will even further degrade, debase the stand of the judiciary. And I would love that some steps are even taken to ensure that persons who conduct themselves in this manner are not allowed to continue this. She doesn't really even deserve to continue to be a member of the Council of State, so that she can be a lone ranger, a free citizen who can express anything of her choice. Remember, she is under oath. So you cannot come out to breach the oath of office and the trust that has been imposed on you. That is fundamentally wrong, and that is legally wrong for her to have engaged in those utterances in the first place. She did not give an objective assessment of the situation, but she simply played a political card and came out with some statements that ought not to have been made, especially when she is under oath as a member of the Council of State. That is very wrong, and that is clearly illegal. And I think that she should know better and resign. Otherwise,
two points that you're making. You're saying, first of all, that because she was part of the Council of State that made the prima facie determination, are you saying that she can comment on the outcome?
Look, you cannot, to the extent that you are making comments that suggested otherwise, as though you were not part of the prima facie determination.
What if she disagreed, but the majority opinion stood?
That's the point I'm making. The constitutional provision is that once the majority makes a decision, that's it. You cannot detach yourself from that. You may dissent, and that's the law. But you don't come out, especially under oath, to be granting interviews and making comments that will appear to be denigrating the very institution you are part of. And that also suggests that you are now being more political than the political actors themselves. Because these were political statements and not grounded in law. Those statements were not grounded in law. They were not.
They were not grounded in law?
Yeah, no. Those statements were not grounded in law. They were just ordinary opinions expressed.
Saying that she feels...
In a manner that paints the committee as political or the president as a political person. And I'm saying that to that extent, you are also now assuming the position of the other political side, which is the MPP, and then playing it against the NDC. But where you are, that is not your role. If you knew you were going to play that role, you ought to have actually indicated your disinterest in participating in the functions of an institution that is supposed to be neutral, that is supposed to be under oath, and make comments that will develop the nation as a country, and not a comment that will suggest to be supportive of a particular political party's position. Have you noticed that she has espoused the position of the MPP, and that's exactly what they are saying, and they are now feeding into that. The MPP can say that it's a political party. They are not under oath to do that, but you were dealing with the state. Where you are not serving the state, and not any political party, and not any particular friend or mentee. No, but that's what she's doing. And I'm saying that the danger is that she's not extending the degree of decadence from the judiciary under which she was the head to the Council of State. That decadence is gradually being transferred from where she was and headed as the head of government to the Council of State. And I'm saying that we should not allow that to happen. If she wants to do that, then she better and honorably resign and go and do that. Nobody has an issue against her. But so long as you remain under oath and you are serving as a Council of State member who should know better, you can't go out and be making sweeping statements, ordinary full stages statements that do not require any justification whatsoever. No, you can't do that. And so she ought to simply resign. Otherwise, I have no doubt that in the coming days, you will see something happen about these comments that she's making as political comments. Some lawyers will take this up, or some ordinary citizens will take this up.
So for you, okay, so what you call a political comment is her suggestion that, in fact, you are right when you say the MPP has also made the same argument. The argument that they do not think, and she agrees, that the allegations made are not grievous enough for the removal of someone like the Chief Justice, head of an independent arm of government. Are you saying you disagree with that?
That's the point I'm making. That those are political statements, because this is not the time to make those statements. The time to make those statements were the very time the prima facie case was to be determined. Now, you might have held that opinion at the time, but the majority of the council members, they thought otherwise. And you cannot be more intelligent than the rest. You are just alone. There were even more senior lawyers, seasoned lawyers, at the time when the determination was made. And so that became the position of the Council of State. You can express every dissent there. You are under oath. Have you seen any one of them making such ordinary and loose statements? They recognize the responsibility, the duty imposed on them. And they knew the consequences. They knew the consequences at the time that they did this, that if they came out to make any such ordinary sweeping and sweet statements, what it meant. They knew it at the time. And that's why I'm saying that I'm really rather surprised that no less a person than a former CJ is making these comments now. Bearing in mind that it has serious consequences, serious legal consequences. And this is the time for you to be making these comments. These are just to justify the point that they were simply playing the game of the MPP, advancing the cause of the MPP, even as head of an institution of or an arm of government, which is the judiciary. They played it while in office and out of office now. They are finding ways when they are supposed to be advising, giving very wise counsel to ordinary people and to all citizens. They keep playing the politics even at that level. And for me, that's my worry. That's my worry, where the politics is now being played. That is my worry. At the time petitions were submitted to his former president, Akuffo, against this same CG, what was coming? The president never allowed it to even flow. It never proceeded to any stage to determine anything. Did she come out to tell us at the time why he didn't come? So what is good for the goose is equally good for the gander. If she thought it wise that she was under oath and therefore needed not to comment at the time, she didn't need to also comment this time.
Okay.
And that's what I'm saying. You see that she recognized that she was under oath at the time. What has changed? That she's now a PR to the person at the center of affairs or to the NPP, playing it like an opposition representative over there. No. So it's a serious breach of trust of the ordinary citizen. And that's why I'm saying that I have no doubt that in the coming days, there may be some actions, legal actions, taken against her.
Okay.
That is a complete breach of trust and the confidence of ordinary people, ordinary citizens of Ghana have given her through His Excellency the President by appointing her to the Council of State.
Sada, thank you very much.
Okay, abusua wene ensema ekoso e political highway so eye Sophia Akuffo and I see ano ne ho aba asem ya enye asem keto akra na maami aye frɛ no eye tokono no okodi nachi a abusua asema ebeto no zizi are maami ne de pressure mount on her no eye se odi ne di bre no eto abusua wene ensema ekoso ebeda mase se moje pene kokoti sa ensem we ere bai aha Ghana Politics Avenue so, Madam Ase.